And my Uncle Turk came home from the war on a furlough, and we really liked him. He was one of our favorites. And then he was getting ready to leave and go back to the camp, wherever he was camped at. And we decided, hey, let's go back to the camp with him. I'm sure it was my idea. It couldn't have been Sue's. She was too young to think of that. But so we decided to go with him, but we didn't want to walk behind him close enough that he would see us, or he would make us go home. So we kind of kept our distance, and we followed him, and next thing you know, we weren't following him anymore. I didn't know where he went, and we were just walking down the street, me and my little sister, hand in hand, you know. And it turns out we were up at 19th and Duncan Street by that time, and it was in the middle of the afternoon, and some of the neighbor people, you know how back in those days everybody sit out on the porch and talk to their neighbors and everything, and people saw us walking down the street, and they started asking us questions like, hey, what's your name? Where do you live? And all that kind of stuff. And I couldn't tell them where we lived, and actually we were lost. But we didn't know we were lost. We were just walking along, and we told them we were following my uncle who was going back to camp, you know. And but we lost him. We didn't know where he was. And so they didn't know us either, and they didn't know where we came from. So they called the police, and the police came down, put us in a police car, and we really couldn't tell them where we were. We told them what our name was, but that didn't mean anything. And they asked us where we live, and I said, well, we're not at home. We're down at Mom and Pop's house. And that didn't help anything either. And they said, well, where do they live? And well, I said, well, they live next door to that big store where they sell balloons. That's the only thing I could tell them. And so they got us in the car, and we cruised around the neighborhood until finally we saw a Black's Dry Goods store. And I said, that's it, that's the place. And so they took us over there and give us back to our parents. But it's just interesting. The only thing I knew to tell them was that we lived next to that big store where they sell balloons.
That's pretty good.
I tell you what, I was a corker. I'm glad I didn't belong to me. My mother used to take me to the bingo with her, and that was something I really liked to do. And one of the main things I remember, besides just running around and playing on the banisters and the steps and everything else, they had a piano there, and there was an old blind man who used to sell shoestrings in between the games. He'd be up and down the aisle selling shoestrings and pencils and stuff like that. And occasionally he'd go over to that piano, and boy, he could knock out a tune. And really, it was very inspiring. I loved to hear him play. Old Blind Jimmy, they called him. I don't know what his name was other than that. But it was inspiring in that I always told myself, if that blind man can play a piano, surely I can play piano. I've got my sight, you know, I can see what I'm doing. Every time I get a little discouraged, I think of old Blind Jimmy and how he was able to play so well, and it helps me to persevere and give it another try, you know. One day I must have been in the principal's office or somewhere, and I noticed a window that wouldn't lock, and it was partway open, you know, just a little bit open. You could raise it up, and it was unable. It had probably been painted to where they couldn't close it, you know. I didn't know what the reason was, but anyway, one day me and all my playmates, which was my sister Sue, my cousin Jeannie, who lived down at the corner, and probably Deanna. I know Deanna knew about it because I talked to her recently. She lives down in Florida now. And her and probably Janet, all me and about 4 or 5 of my kids I played with, we went down to the school, which was only down on the next block. And we went down to the school, and I showed her this window where we could get in. So we got in, all climbed through the window, and we were having a great time. And there was desks, and there was blackboards, and thumbtacks, and just all kinds of stuff. And all the kids were little. Heck, I was only in first grade. I was 6, and I was a year and a half older than Sue. And Sue was a half a year older than Jeannie, so or a year older, something like that. And Janet was even younger than that. I mean, I was down there with some babies, you know, but I was the ringleader, and I got them in there. We just had the biggest old time, just writing on blackboards, and I put a thumbtack on the teacher's chair, so when she sit down on it, she would. We stayed there and played in that room, and finally it got dark, and we had to put the lights on, and that's what gave us away. We didn't, being little children, we didn't think of it, but we had the lights on, and Father Lehman must have seen the lights on from his rectory and walked over there and saw what was going on. And I don't know how he did it, because I don't know that part of the story, but when the door finally opened, he had our parents with him. So he had went and got the parents and had them come down there to get the kids. And they opened the door, and when the door opened, everybody scattered. We all trying to find some place to hide, you know, but there wasn't any place to hide in that little classroom. So anyway, they took us all out, and I don't know about Jeannie, but the rest of us, they didn't spank us. They just told us, don't do that again. You know, they were nice parents. I had good parents. I got my share of spankings, but I didn't get it for stuff like that. Disobedience or something maybe, but not being adventurous.